Hello there folks, I'm Dan Brown from sortofinteresting.com and today you are joining me on board good old Narrowboat Abel's Ark, and we've got a real-time boating trip for you today. But this is going to be slightly different to the usual beautiful rural canal trips that I do on this channel, and instead, for something a little bit of a curiosity, you're going to see me actually go through the basin at Ellesmere and see a bit of traffic and deal with other boats that are coming and going, and then pull into the Marina at Ellesmere, which is Blackwater Meadow, and actually moor up in my little spot in the Marina. And the reason that I'm using this particular bit of footage is because it's probably the only time I will ever get such a perfect smooth mooring experience, and certainly probably the only time that I'll ever get it on camera. So, as many of you know, normally I cut out when there's other people and other boats coming towards us, just because I don't really like to put other people in these videos. But here, today, I am going to keep all of the footage completely as it was, apart from when we pull up to the services here at Ellesmere and I go and empty out the toilets. That will cut out, I think. But as you can see, this is just over an 18.5-minute long video, something in that region. I'm not sure what the final video will be. And that's a good indication of how slow progress this trip is going to be, as we're only going around one corner underneath one bridge and then pulling into the Marina. But because of meeting boats coming down through the busy sort of basin area, and then obviously when we're actually mooring up, it's something that you want to do very slowly. And as you'll see, I at this point had a neighbour that was a very, very nice, clean, fancy, perfect, just immaculate boat, absolutely beautiful boat. But we'll see that as we approach the Marina and get stuck in, not literally stuck in. So Ellesmere is an interesting place really up here on the Llangollen Canal, as so much of the canal is incredibly rural, as you might have gathered from the opening of this video. But Ellesmere is one of the very few places within dozens of miles of canal that the canal itself actually goes right up into a town or a village. And at the end of the junction, the little branch of canal that leads to our left-hand side when we get to the basin area just ahead, that literally goes practically into a supermarket front door. So that makes this a very popular place to moor up, because it's easy to get supplies on and off the boat. It's an easy place that people in the local area know, so that if I'm meeting my friends and stuff, for example, I've moored up at this section in years gone by on my previous Narrowboat Tilly. Check out my other videos for hundreds of videos about life on board Narrowboat Tilly from a few years ago. Great, fantastic times. That was absolutely wonderful experience. But because of that, and because there's the Marina here with Marina services, and there's all of this basin area here with the services along the side, which is what we're looking at dead on in the centre of the screen here. There's toilet emptying facilities, that big sort of archway that looks like some sort of, I don't know, a black hole, I suppose. That is the entrance to the dry dock here. And then there's water points and rubbish disposal. So there's a lot of reason that this is a popular area. And you can see how many boats we've got moored up on the left-hand side that we're passing here. And there's a boat travelling up ahead of us going around the corner any moment now. And a boat already moored up on the right-hand side at the services. And I think there was a boat in the dry dock too at this particular point. But this isn't even the busiest time of the year. Over the summer months that we've reached now, there's boats all over the place here, and sometimes it's absolute mayhem. In fact, when I was moored up at the basin once upon a time, a historic narrowboat, Narrowboat Saturn, Buckton towing Narrowboat Saturn, actually crashed into the side of Tilly. So I'll leave a link to that video in the description below, as it's just a random moment of Dan Brown Canal history there for any of the people who've joined these videos in recent times and not necessarily familiar with the good old days on Narrowboat Tilly. But at this point, I had my first slight issue. Luckily, I had a friend on board with me who could hop off and grab a rope and pull the boat across to the side. But you can see there's just this slight angle on the right-hand side of the canal bank where you've got this concrete siding. It's just got a slight sort of curve to it, a slight angle. So as I was trying to moor up to that part, I ended up overshooting because I'm still getting used to my bigger, heavier boat and controlling it. So I went past where I was trying to angle up, and of course, when the side straightened up so that both sides of the canal here are relatively parallel, I then was further away from the side than I'd anticipated on being. I'll word it like that. So luckily I started to reverse and my friend grabbed a rope, jumped across and then pulled us over sideways. And that's when I got off and took the toilet tanks to be emptied just through that doorway that's just in the screen now. Where the blue signs are, basically, you can see the open doorway, and I think that's the doorway into the toilet, the L-sand disposal, they call it. And basically, emptying toilets, as you can imagine, is a very glamorous part of boat life. It is as simple as just taking your portable toilet, like a camping style toilet, I suppose. You might have them in camper vans, things like that. Take the bottom plastic tank and then tip it down a giant toilet and then get out of there as quickly as you can. So here we are, letting that boat go past before we set out. And you're about to see now how long it takes us to get just into the marina. And it's not as if it's going to take us 5 hours to go around one corner, don't get me wrong. But there's a few things that are of interest and of note to talk about as we're going forwards here. Just thought at this moment as well, I would throw in this here is a good sign of the wind conditions. The way the hedge and the tree is blowing on the right-hand side there. It's not the ideal conditions. If I'm travelling slowly, like inside a marina trying to moor up, my ideal circumstances would be that it would just be completely zero wind conditions and you'd not have anything that could potentially blow you off course. So there's the white bridge that you can just see over the top of that boat on the left hand side, and that branch of the canal leads down to Ellesmere and to the supermarket, as I mentioned earlier. And we're going to our right hand side. So the first thing to note, the first sort of interesting thing, I suppose, or just point of curiosity for people who might not be familiar with narrowboats. So this is being filmed from the front, the very front of a 45-foot narrowboat. So I'm stood probably about 40 foot behind where this view is. So obviously as this view that we're getting here, you can see we're going around the corner. We're not too close to the corner because we don't want to suddenly get around the corner right into the oncoming or the path of an oncoming boat. But obviously, what you're seeing on the screen, what we're looking at on the screen now, I'm 40 foot behind it. So as this can see around the corner and can see a boat heading up towards us, it may still be a little while until I'm out. I've basically got the direct line of sight that the camera at the front of the boat has got. So sometimes if you've got, like, say, a 60-foot boat or two 60-foot boats going around a corner towards each other, if there's somebody on the front of the boat, then they can shout back, "Oh, there's a boat coming, and raise the alarm. If not, then you can have two 60-foot boats that might get, 40 foot around a big corner like this before they realise that they're going directly towards another boat. So again, sometimes there's a little bit of fun in this sort of environment on the canal. So you can see there's this boat coming up towards us. We've got the overgrown bank and all the trees and hedgerow on the right hand side, which is obviously cutting into the canal space, and then moored up boats on the left hand side. So that makes for a very narrow channel, and there's a bridge just at the end of what we can see almost on our horizon there. And so basically I saw the boat come in, thought there's no way I'm going to risk trying to cram us all down into there and squeeze past. So I had to reverse back out and just try and hover in the same place. So because you don't have steering in reverse, and because we had the wind blowing us slightly, it's a case of basically trying to reverse, keep us in the same place very roughly, every now and then put a little bit of forwards motion onto the engine, and with the tiller to one side or the other to stop the front of the boat drifting one way or another, and then hoping that that boat can get up pretty swiftly and be through. So you can see here now we're passing through this ever narrowing channel, heading towards this bridge. And this bridge, I think, this section here of the video sort of sums up, like you say, why I didn't want to try and get my boat between that boat and the hedgerow, as there's very little room, and again you've got boats moored up on one side, so it's just not worth you. The last thing you want to do is be trying to cram boats and scrape along boats and stuff, especially as there's that little plastic, the little GRP river cruiser boat. It's like, I wouldn't fancy a few tons of steel going into one of those. And known by some people as yogurt pots, the little plastic boats. Anyway, just a random little thing there for you. So here we are getting to the bridge now, and as we go through the bridge, you can see we followed a boat down here, and they'd got here so that they were passing that boat after, like basically at this point, so they didn't have the moored boats on the one side. But as luck would have it, that boat that charged through ahead of us had basically made this boat that was also coming down to go through the bridge towards us stop in its place. So obviously that then made sure that we didn't have any issues of having to pass this boat while we were passing all the other boats. If he'd have thought, yeah, let's go for it, I can fit up the middle there. Some people say, and it's the only thing that I've really heard, that if you're travelling with the flow of water, which we are, then you take the sort of precedence and the priority at bridges and things like that. If two boats are arriving at a similar sort of time, then whoever's going with the flow of water goes through first. That's not a universally recognised thing, and I'm wondering if it's maybe something that the hire boat companies tell hire boaters and holiday makers around this area, because there's a lot of holiday traffic, and it's just a unified system to help stop any boat rage at narrow points like this. But again, that's just something that I've heard. It's something a few people have said, and something that I've mentioned in videos back when I was on Narrowboat Tilly, and people in the comments have said, what on earth are you talking about? I've never heard of that ever before in my life. So we are now approaching the entry to Blackwater Meadow Marina, where we will stay for probably a couple of weeks before we head out on another boating adventure. Who knows what the future holds. So this is a right angle turn on the canal basically, and as you're about to see, it's a very narrow entrance, so we haven't got loads of room to play with like we had going around that 90-degree turn in the basin, where we could just swing it right out and just go into a nice wide section of canal. Or obviously if that boat hadn't have been heading towards us, we could have. So this is where you can sort of tell that I am not the most accomplished boater, I'll say. Now, it doesn't show up too badly on the footage that we've got here, but this is yet another case. I don't think I've made it in or out of this entry here without tapping the boat on both sides of the entry, so it's still something that I need to work on, definitely. And again, you can see here, I basically, it's a common mistake I'm making with this bigger boat than Narrowboat Tilly. I'm sort of panicking and I turn too early. So then we've ended up coming in too early and coming in at like a flipping 30-degree angle into a straight, what should be a 90-degree turn or whatever you want to call it. But luckily, a lot of the holiday boats are all out here as we've come in, so we've got plenty of room to manoeuvre. And really, my only concern at this point was making sure that I didn't go straight into any of these GRP cruisers here. For anyone unfamiliar, GRP basically means glass reinforced plastic, so I think that's similar, if not the same, as fiberglass. Don't quote me on these things. Sadly, after all this time on the canal, after 6 years of boating videos, it may shock you, probably not, to know that I am not a boating expert. So basically, like I say, we don't want to go too close to those, definitely, and see them crushed between the jetty and tons of metal boats that we're controlling, or pretending to be in control of. Then our other thing is just basically keep an eye on the wind and make sure that if it starts to get wild and gusty, that we're going to be, hopefully, blowing in the right direction. So you can see here again, I feel I'm turning too early yet again. Obviously in no danger of hitting those boats, luckily. But we're still going way too close to that side. Compared to where I expected and wanted the boat to be travelling, I still feel like it was way too much close to the left-hand side there. And again, I thought in this clip the holiday boats were all out. Certainly out of that first entry area, coming into the marina, but you can see that's we've just passed the back end, the sterns of 2 holiday boats, and here we are now going into our little section. And I quite like being moored up on this section because, as you'll notice, we have got the dry dock and the jetty to the left-hand side as we shift across here. I promise it will come into view any moment. But again, absolutely beautiful. This absolutely lovely set of boats here. So because we've got this jetty and the holiday boats tend to get moored up along here, I feel like it's either holiday boats or just the plain empty jetty on the left-hand side here. So I feel like we've got a safe place to go to regroup and think and plan our next route into our actual mooring spot if things don't go right. When me and my granddad moored up in here, it was the first time that I tried mooring in the Marina. And I literally had to pull over to the left-hand side, let my granddad get off and run around to the other side to the jetty so he could grab a rope and pull us in. It wasn't my finest boating hour, and that's why that one's not on the camera. So basically, on the right-hand side of the screen right now, you can see that boat, just the very front of it with the cratch cover on it. We're going to try and moor up right next to that. So as you'll see, as it comes into shot here, we've got a very narrow space to put a 6'10" wide boat into. And I basically swung the boat around to the left-hand side a little bit so then I could swing it back in here. And again, luckily, having a friend on board meant that I had somebody who could jump off, grab a rope and pull us to the side, as the absolute last thing I would ever want to do is damage somebody else's boat. The manoeuvre would be far less stressful and worrying if it was all filled with jagged rocks on every surface rather than other people's boats, as that would be my absolute worst thing. Like, worst nightmare to damage other people's boats. My own boat is my responsibility and mine to sort of look after as best as I can, but the idea of damaging other people who are just going about their daily lives. You may have just noticed we had a slight shift to the left hand side then, as I just slightly oversteered, so the jetty just pushed us back. Now I'm going to zoom the camera in very slightly now, just so that you don't get to see my friend's incredible facial reactions, as I hopped off the boat as well. He had the rope at this point, stood on the jetty just out of shot. Here we are, zoomed in now. Then I hopped off and grabbed another rope to just pull it in and moor us up. But then I realised here why we weren't moving forwards was because I'd accidentally left just a tiny bit of reverse on. So we were trying to pull the boat inwards and the boat was trying to reverse itself outwards. And his reaction to that is, he didn't say anything. It was just his face. Oh, it was a picture, but a picture that I'm sure he would rather me not share. So yeah, that's mooring up. And in typical fashion, I came home from work a couple of days after this, or a week or so after this, and all 4 boats, apart from mine, out of these 2 bays, were all completely gone. So it wouldn't have been a worry at all. Just come in, moor up, not an issue whatsoever. But of course, that's the way it goes. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. There I am, a lovable rogue there. Feel free, please, to check out my other videos, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get a notification when I post a video. Feel free also to add me on Facebook and all that sort of stuff. And if you're really curious and if you'd really like to help me out, please consider checking out my short books available for the Kindle, all about my first steps into boat life. And there's also a paperback version that contains a few of my Kindle books in one volume. You'll find links to that in the description below. And, well, until the next time, my friends, as always, keep it boat worthy, keep it interesting, have a fantastic day, and of course, farewell.